All right. All right, looks like this is actually working. I'm going to try and pull this up on my desktop so that I can see who's chatting. So hopefully we got some people in the chat. Yes, you can hear me. So it was some sort of, I don't know what happened, some sort of software issue came up, because once I plugged my microphone into, once I just started up OBS Studio, it's all started working. So I don't know what exactly happened. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a delay too while we work on this. But I was typing for a second to try and make sure that everyone had the link. Let me check one thing. Someone had a suggestion for me just now. Nope, there was no voice meter working, so it was not online. So I don't know what happened there. But anyways, it looks like you can all hear me now. So thanks, guys. Sorry about that issue, but we'll make it happen. All right, I think that we might have a little bit of connection. It says stream status good, so we'll get rolling. So let me just start over here. So again, I want to welcome everybody. I'm not sure if everyone here is how much knowledge they have of Rifts or Savage Worlds and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to go over the basics and then talk about some of the really exciting stuff that's coming up, and also share with you guys, just some of my thoughts about the future and some of the stuff that Kevin and I have talked about recently, so that y'all can all be caught up to date. Again, thanks everybody at GenCon online, and thanks for being patient with me. But to start off, this is my channel is the Roberson Rebellion on YouTube. So if you haven't checked it out before, please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. If you hit the notification icon, a lot of times I try and do live shows when I can, and I don't run into technical difficulties. That's always an issue. So anyhow, for those of you who are new to Rifts, this beautiful worn book is my first copy of Rifts. Back when it was released, apparently I got it. It's a third printing, so I got it right after the game was released. It was a real big phenomenon when it first hit the market in 1990, 1991. And it's a post-apocalyptic role-playing game, as I'm sure many of you know, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really cool thing that on the surface it looks like just you throw all the magic, all the technology, all the everything into a blender and blend it up, but really there's a lot of depth to it, and that's one of the things that keeps me and I think a lot of the fans coming back to the setting 30 years later. Recently, Palladium has been releasing different versions of the game. They've got the Rifts Ultimate Edition. And oh yeah, I'll give you guys, I'll post when let me do this right. As soon as I get done with this stream, I already have the interview with me and Kevin uploaded. So it's a big doozy. It's 2.5 hours long, and there's a lot of cool reveals in there. So as soon as this is done, right now it's set to unlisted, but I'll be listing it for you guys to see. And I think Palladium will also be posting an interview that they recorded with me earlier this week. So just a few years ago, Savage Worlds, Pinnacle Entertainment, the creators of Savage Worlds, which if any of you aren't familiar with it, it is a universal role-playing system. So here is my copy of Savage Worlds. Actually, this is pretty cool. I'll show off. It's signed by Shane Hensley. This was the first book off the printing line, so pretty cool stuff. Yeah, Rift's main book. Those were definitely the days. War Shield. You're absolutely right. I gamed. You guys can. I'll talk about it with Kevin in the interview. You'll see shortly once I get that link going live. Yeah, I gamed with my buddies for years and years and years, and sometimes it seemed like all summer or all weekend when we could. Since it was licensed by Savage Worlds, first they came out with 3 books. They came out with a player's guide, as well as, and my player's guide has gone AWOL here real quick, but as well as a Game Master's Handbook and a Savage Foes of North America. Think of it as like a North American bestiary. And these books are really great. I really enjoyed them, and these are the ones we've recently updated them to the newest edition of Savage Worlds. So I helped lead the team. Well, we had 3 writers, and we'd worked on 3 new world books for the Savage Worlds edition of the game. And I was in charge of making sure that once those books were done, that we got them updated to the new Adventure edition of Savage Worlds, and we did a big long play test on the Adventure edition of Savage Rifts. So that was a lot of fun, and we got, I think, a lot of really cool tweaking and tightening of things here and there for all this stuff. So I think that that's one of the things that everybody can really enjoy. Now, the Adventure Edition is a big step forward for Savage Worlds, and I think a big step forward for Rifts as well, because Rifts uses everything. You know, Savage Worlds, whether it's doing horror or it's doing sci-fi or fantasy, it has a lot of really cool mechanics, but Rifts uses all of them and leans on all of them heavily. So the new edition brought a whole sweeping bunch of improvements for Savage Rifts. Plus, like I said, we had the ability to take some of the years of feedback and integrate those changes into the core system. And these, we also have the new world books. So these came out recently, and you can get them on the Pinnacle Entertainment website. I think they'll be coming to, you can also get them on DriveThruRPG. I think they'll be coming to Amazon very soon. So the 3 different books are Arcana and Mysticism. So this one is, these 3 are companions basically trying to give the big overview of the major stuff that's going on in North America and Rifts. Arcana and Mysticism is the one that's going to get you going for all of your Federation of Magic, Psyscape, you know, psychics and magic and all that kind of stuff, going real hardcore. And then the next one after that is Blood and Banes. And so that one is going to get you running when it comes to all of your kind of your a lot of your enemies, like Vampire Kingdoms, the Zytikic, as well as Dinosaur Swamp are some of the big focuses. And each one of these books also has a plot point campaign. So Arcana and Mysticism actually has an entire campaign prepped, which you can use with either Savage Worlds or with Palladium Rifts to have a really great adventure module, as well as or a campaign module for you to run an entire campaign, as well as other adventures set within North America with a mystic or arcane bent. And then Blood and Banes has the campaign module within this one actually is centered around, as you might have guessed, the Vampire Kingdoms. And so the players can do that and actually get to interact some with the Reeds Rangers, and a real good start if you wanted to get a campaign or something really long-term going, as well as tons of adventures with the Zytikic or in Dinosaur Swamp, and also Mad Haven. A lot of material for Mad Haven. And then this is the book that I wrote. This is Empires of Humanity, and this one focuses on the Coalition, Northern Gun, the Shimerian Empire, or the Shimerian Nation, and stuff like that. So this one, the plot point campaign, I don't want to give away too much. It's got a little bit of reveals, but it deals with some mechanized and mechanical enemies and foes and friends alike. So that one's a lot of fun, and I hope everyone enjoys it. Plus, we have things, a lot of just general New West or other humanity type adventures. Like there's a train robbery, and there's a kind of a treasure hunt and treasure rush. So there's a lot of fun adventures within that book as well. And it has, if you have the revised version, the new Adventure Edition of the Savage Foes of North America, you've got all the Coalition equipment and characters statted up for the pre-105 PA, the old school, the old style armor and weaponry. And then in Empires of Humanity, you've got a lot of entries for you to have all your NPCs running around in the post-105 PA, Dead Boy armor and power armors like the Hellraiser and Super Samus and stuff like that. I see some feedback here. Yeah, it looks like you guys all are really happy about Rifts as well. It looks like we've got a lot of longtime fans. Yeah, I mean, Vampire Kingdoms was that first world book that came out. Atlantis was the second, and so yeah, I really fell in love with those as they were just so foundational to the setting and what I came to kind of expect and hope for as so for the Palladium line. I know that Kevin recently they're still releasing lots of great stuff, and our books aren't designed to replace theirs. Theirs aren't designed to replace ours. It's two different game systems to play the same world in. And so one of the things that they've come out with recently is the Bestiary, the North American Bestiary. So you can go through and you can see the different ranges, the different supernatural monsters and things like that can be found in different areas of North America. Read some of the updated versions of them. Also, they're coming out with Titan Robotics is going to be coming up soon. And in the far near future, I don't know what that means. In the future, not super close future, but in the future, there will also be a series of Laszlo books coming out. So I'm not sure how soon those are going to be, but you can hear a discussion again in that video that I'll update to be public, as well as pop a link probably in the comments down below for everyone to see. But as far that's the Palladium line. As far as the Savage Worlds line of Rifts products, I am actually currently working on Atlantis and the Demon Seas. We do have cover art, but I don't have an easy or convenient way to show that to you guys. But if you watch the interview with Kevin, I have a little snippet of it in the video that you can check out. And I got some people talking about Atlantis. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I'm trying to have fun with it. That's one of the things that it's interesting. Kevin and I were talking a lot. We've talked a lot, especially lately, and the past few months. And one of the things that he's really said is to have fun with it. So I'm trying to make sure that we keep to the original feel and spirit, but kind of like the Juicer or the Crazy or the Dragon Juicer. There's some of the things that when we work on them, it's gonna function a little differently in Savage Worlds, since the Savage Worlds is a much more cinematic, fast, fun, furious game system. So sometimes the mechanics just don't line up, and that could be a really fun opportunity to innovate and do some cool stuff. So yeah, it's called Atlantis and the Demon Seas because it does include the Haroon, the Lemurians, the New Navy, and the Naut Yul. So I'm trying to hit all the highlights so that once you have Atlantis, we're also going to have a lot of seafaring rules and underwater rules and seafaring vessels and things like that, so that once you have this book, you can kind of leave North America. And first destination, of course, would be Atlantis. But in the future, you could use these rules for all of your underwater adventures or high seas adventures in the world of Rift's Earth. After that, we'll see exactly how things go. I really want to do a book on South America, and I really want to do a book on Europe. I'm not sure exactly how that'll all get carved up, especially with Europe, because the United Kingdom, I should say the British Isles and Western Europe, and then Northern or North, the East. Where we've got like the Russian areas and also the Mediterranean and North Africa. And it's really trying to figure out how to slice all that up is going to be a challenge, and probably not going to happen until I'm actually sitting down and deciding I need to write that book. And I'll have to really look at it and take a pick through a lot of that stuff to figure out exactly how I'll parse it out. But I am very excited about all that stuff. I love Triax, love the NGR. But, honestly, I love just about everything about Rifts. So I'd be lying. Actually, one of the things that I'm the most excited to take on is probably pretty far down the road for the Savage Worlds version is Japan and the China books. because I was actually a Chinese linguist. I lived overseas in Taiwan for a couple of years and worked as a missionary there. So I've got a big love for the people and the culture, and I was also a Chinese analyst for the U.S. Air Force. And so with that said, I have a lot of ideas, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. The other thing that's really fun about all these books for Savage Worlds is that they're all set in 109 PA. So kind of like when fans, Palladium fans, have read, say, Rift's Aftermath, you know that Aftermath actually has a big overview of the world catching things up towards 109 PA. But there's a lot of details that can't get in there. So one of the things that Kevin and I have worked really hard on doing is bringing the Savage Worlds books up to 109 PA, so that just like with Aftermath, you can get this really great adventure material. Well, Aftermath doesn't have adventure material per se, but you can get adventure material, but also you can get kind of this Rift's Aftermath type experience going through and getting a refresher and a catch up and a lot of new details that we've worked out that are canon for the Rift setting. So I think that's one of the great things about working on these books is, as a fan and as a writer, is there's a lot of room to do new things or provide new events and breathe another, more life into the world as a living, breathing thing, not something that's just static that's sitting there. But again, anything like that does happen, I'm coordinating with Kevin and the rest of his crew and his team so that we can make sure that everything you get is going to be reflected in their products as well going forward. So I think that's a lot of fun. And you're right, it does have a lot of adventure hooks. And yes, Atlantis will be covering the Lord of the Deep. Let's see. Yeah, I'm super jazzed about South America too. That one's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. But yeah, that's some of the overview and the general things that are being worked on. We're also working on a couple of adventure modules, and I know this is something that Palladium doesn't do as much of. And in the interview that you will see with Kevin, I hope everybody watches it because it's a really fun conversation that he and I had. But we really discussed the fact that they don't really do as much adventure material, so that's a real boon for fans. You can easily pick up, the way we format our adventures is very easy to use with any other game system, and so you could easily pick up the adventures and run them for your group. We have 32 page adventure modules coming. One of them that is being worked on is called Coalition Data File for Humanity. So the Coalition Data File, that's going to, whenever we have adventure modules that maybe have something to do with the Coalition, we'll probably be calling those Coalition data files. And in addition to that, we're also going to be we're also working on some other 32-page adventure modules. And there's one of them I'm still hammering out some of the specifics. I want to make sure we get it all approved and everything before I announce something to you guys. But yeah, we're working on a couple of other ones too. So that'll all be really exciting. And that way, I think people enjoy having more adventure material that they can use with their games, especially when you're going, waiting between world books and stuff like that. Asking about Sea Inquisitors. You know what? I'd have to take a look at my notes. Off the top of my head, I'm a little brain fried because I've been writing all day and then trying to figure out this microphone. I think I do have Sea Inquisitors in there, yeah. But it's kind of funny because with how much we covered, not everything makes it in. So anything that doesn't, we'll try and make sure that it's in there in some way, or you can see it in a future product. But not everything can make it in. For instance, there's so many races in like new races like DBs and stuff like that in Palladium Rifts, that when we go and we do one of these world books, which again are more like a compilation and timeline update with a lot of adventure material, we can't always hit all of the DBs that were listed in every single book that we're referencing. So even with Atlantis and the Demon Seas, it was hard to even make sure that we were covering all the major races that are present for the major factions. So those are things that can be challenging as well. This book will probably have a lot more DBs or races than people would normally expect a world book to have, just because of the breadth of what it's covering. Yeah, I hope you guys don't mind that too much. Another thing that you can check out, besides these 3 new 200-page world books, the original 3 books, is we also have something that I reviewed and put together. It's called the Tomorrow Legion Field Manual. So this was a Kickstarter bonus, something that we did for the fans, and it's got about 20 pages of new material, as well as a whole bunch of adventure material that I went through and spruced up and updated for the adventure edition of Savage Worlds. So again, this is a really good companion if you want to have some of the extra races of dragons, some expanded edges for summoners and shifters and things like that, as well as it's got rules for like the Bounty Hunter Mars package, some vehicles that are really cool. It's got what are those guys called? The Vernulians. I couldn't think of them. The Vernulian race, and I've always liked those guys since Juicer Uprising. So yeah, they've got it's got a bunch of really cool material, as well as a bunch of adventures written by a bunch of great adventure authors. So I think sometimes people forget about it because it's not one of the 3 big original books or the 3 massive new world books. So I'm really glad we got this thing rolling. So I kind of wanted to take some time to take questions from the fans. So I know there's a bit of a delay on the video that I'm recording, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a moment of pause and see how it's going for y'all. Let me see. I'm going to go through here in the chat too to see what y'all have got, because I want to make sure this is live and interactive. So Rob's Gaming Group Table Talk says, you guys have done a great job with Suede Riffs. Thank you. We really appreciate that. Simon and I labored long and hard on bringing this one for the fans. So we're really glad that you guys are enjoying it. James Barrett says, will there be a supplement covering Giga Damage for Savage Rifts? Yeah, absolutely. So we have a 500-foot tall giant robot series of adventures that we're introducing, along with... no, I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. But I do like the idea of Giga Damage. That sounds like a lot of fun. Let's see. I've got some other questions. Laszlo is the Moby Dick of Rift's books. Haha, here's hoping. Yeah, that was something interesting when I was interviewing Kevin, and he was asking me questions and stuff too. We talked about that, and one of the things that he said has been really tough about Laszlo is just making sure that authors had the right balance of ideas and adventure material and stuff like that, and cool factions for the Laszlo series of books. And that's one of the things that he said is really kind of stymied the effort, is that if he doesn't want to put something out that the fans aren't excited about. So that's one of the ones that they've been working on really well, are really hard to make sure that that can come to the fans and be something that you'll be excited and proud of once it's out. Let's see. Numa Biforms. Yes, we do have some of those. Rough ETA of the release for the Atlantis book. No. Jody, Shane, and Simon would all probably gang up on me and beat me up if I started talking about release dates. That's something I really can't talk about. But we are pedaling as fast as we can. I'll put it that way. Oh, you're right, Warshield. Good catch. Yeah, I meant the Vernulians from Vampire Kingdoms. I got them. I got my wires crossed about the Juicer Uprising. Yeah, good catch. Good catch. Yeah, the Vernulians from Vampire Kingdoms, but updated with the what was it called? The DBs of North America. I think it was what it was called, the DBs book, that had some extra material on the Vernulians as well. Yeah, I haven't done anything with the Valax, but I always thought that was a really fun plot thread. My buddies and I, when we were playing back in the day, actually they did some crazy stuff, and there was crazy adventures with the Valax. So that was a lot of fun. I was talking about the snakes, not bugs. But yeah, the Vernulians are now in the field manual for Savage Rifts. So one of the questions I've got was, what was the hardest thing to convert from Rifts in your experience? In my experience, and I see the question about Avenger Armament, so I'll get to that in just a minute. Yeah, DB's in North America. Thanks, John. The hardest thing to convert for me... Well, That's a tough question. I'll give you my top three that come into my top of my head. So one of the things that was really tough is making sure that mega damage felt right. And it was interesting because Savage Worlds has a very different damage model. Anybody knows that than a hit points based system like Palladium is, a more traditional hit points based system. So a lot of people liked the way it worked in general, but some people didn't feel like mega damage weapons were scary enough to people that were wearing lighter body armor and stuff like that. So in the Adventure Edition, one of the setting rules that I added, and we did a lot of playtesting on, and at first a lot of people had read it. The setting rule is basically that if you take damage, if you're not wearing mega damage armor, which in Savage Rifts, you don't really get to mega damage until you're wearing something like power armor, or you're in an armored vehicle or a combat cyborg, that kind of level of protection, just because of the way the damage system works. But if you are hit by a weapon that deals mega damage, normally heavy weapons in Savage Worlds don't do extra damage to targets that don't have heavy weapons. It's just that in Savage Worlds, you can only damage something with heavy armor, like a tank, with a heavy weapon. So one of the things that I introduced is a setting rule where if you have a target that's like, say, ley line walker, somebody walking around in some lighter body armor, and they get hit by an anti-tank class mega damage dealing weapon, then there's a chance that they're going to take an injury, at least until they can some sort of maybe be blinded in an eye, or lose the use of their arm temporarily until they can get that wound healed up. And a lot of people, when they first read it, I think in the playtest were fairly they didn't know if it was going to work. But once people started playing it in game sessions and giving us their feedback, they actually said that it added a lot to the setting, and they had a lot of fun with it. So there were some little tweaks and changes here and there to make sure that your combat classes that might not be wearing super duper heavy armor are able to quickly recover wounds like that, like say a Crazy or a Juicer or a Cyber Knight, that they can all deal with stuff like that, even though they're more squishy infantry. But I think it works really well. And then the other thing is, it's a setting rule. Setting rules in Savage Worlds are little toggles that you can turn on and off, which is one of the reasons that I really like the game system. And you can use them to customize your game to be something truly universal. If you want to do real horror, or if you want to do noir detective or high adventure, you can do all those things. So if it's not working for you in your group, just don't use the setting rule. If you want something a little more swashbuckling, use an extra setting rule. You can have a lot of fun with riffs and especially Savage riffs that way. And another thing that was really tough to convert over, or at least when we were updating it, was the Juicer. So the Juicer's burn mechanic, I don't know if you guys heard, that was one of the really great things I think the original design team did with the first edition of Rifts for Savage Worlds. But every time you used your burn, it was like a ticking clock. When you ran out of burn, the Juicer would die. But one of the problems that we found is that in convention play or one-off adventure play, people would use it no problem. Or maybe some of the older Rifts fans would use the burn because they knew that their hero, when they chose a Juicer, is going to be burning out and dying and moving on and passing away. But a lot of players were actually hoarding their burn and never using it. So what was the point of a mechanic people aren't using? And we don't want eternal juicers. So one of the things that Shane and I came up with a way to handle that is when you roll your burn, and a D6, it adds to your die roll. It's tacked right off the score like a bonus to certain types of checks that a juicer would normally be able to do. If you roll a 1, you lose a point of burn, but otherwise you don't lose a point of burn. So every time you're using the burn, there's a chance that you're gonna use up a bit of that life force that can't be gotten back in any way, shape, or form. So we felt like that makes it really tempting for players. And as they get closer and closer to last call, to checking out and passing away from using all the juice, the burn die actually gets larger and larger, so you get bigger bonuses and a little bit less chance to roll that 1. So it's a pretty fun mechanic, pretty interesting mechanic, and I thought that was a really great thing to update. Another thing that we worked really hard on and that took some work was making sure that the Mind Melter truly felt like the Mind Melter. And I think that that's one of the things that in the Adventure Edition of Rifts for Savage Worlds, the Mind Melter, the Ley Line Walker, they really feel like what they're supposed to feel like. They really are the masters of their craft. So a couple more questions here. We've got, yes, Salcor asked about Avenger Armaments. So Avenger Armaments is really cool. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Ironheart Industries, Ironheart Armaments from the Mercenaries book, but they were a group of Ironheart scientists and engineers that left. They found the plans for a bunch of pre-rifts tanks and ships and helicopters and stuff like that. Not super high-tech electronically, but they could manufacture with more traditional weapons of war that they could, more machines that they could manufacture, but still integrate in advanced mega damage materials. And so one of the big things that happened with them is that the coalition eventually did descend on their little town of New Conora and seize the means of production. But when that happened, one of their small flotillas was actually delivering a group of small warships to the what was it? I think it's the Tampico Protectorate. But yeah, they were to a small town, a small community in northern Mexico, and they ended up forming the Ironheart Avengers in order to try and fight back against what they saw as the untimely end of their company. Well, Kevin and I have had some discussion and talked about what that means. That was that group of privateers and cutthroat mercenaries was actually in, I believe it was the end of Coalition Navy they were listed, and really cool storyline. And as of around somewhere mid the first few years after 109 or 101 PA. So as of 109 PA, you're going to see Avenger Armaments come back. So there'll be a lot of details in the new Atlantis book, but that's a big deal for this manufacturer to be making a comeback under a different name. They actually managed to succeed in keeping a lot of their blueprints and get manufacturing up and running again, which is going to be a really great thing for anybody that's looking to buy more traditional war machines, especially ships and tanks and stuff like that. I think it'll be a really great addition for the Atlantis book and a fun storyline to keep moving forward. All right, I've got some other questions here. We got a lot of them come in fast and furious. A rules question. Growth shrink as ritual can create something that is literally mountain range size. Should a GM just say no? I mean, it's up to the GM to manage what you can do with rituals. They have a lot of potential. But, maybe they should be, if they do want to create some kaiju-sized character or monster, that's kind of the point. At the same time, if it only lasts for 5 rounds, that's not as exciting either. So they might want to put more of their points into, more of their effort into extending the duration of that ritual or something like that. I think that's, or creating more than one target, right? So I think that's something to consider. Is the license really limited to just Rift's Earth? Yes, but no. So one of the things that you'll see in this interview that I did with Kevin that I'll be posting to be live soon is it's already uploaded and everything, is that he is really, really super, and I've been saying this for a while, that if we want to do something else besides Rift Earth, I don't think it'll be a problem. Well, he states very clearly in the interview that he is super open to negotiating that with us because he's been very, very happy with the level of products coming from the Pinnacle team for Rifts for Savage Worlds. So, yeah, that really definitely means that if we wanted to do scrapers, if we wanted to do something else, it's all just a matter of negotiating and hammering out the business details and stuff like that. Because each one of those dimension books is considered a separate intellectual property. So that's the main thing there. But yeah, these things are all possible. So I wouldn't worry about us having limited access to what we can do with the Rift setting. Yeah, someone says, I feel like scrapers would be an easy conversion. And that's the thing, is especially scrapers, I think, you could be an easy conversion, especially once the new the new Suede, the Adventure Edition of the Superpowers companion comes out, I think you'll be able to have a lot of fun with that. And you don't need, especially with something like that, you don't need necessarily a whole new book from Pinnacle Entertainment, because you've got the rules, you've got the backstory in the Palladium books, and I highly encourage people to go pick up the Palladium books. There's nothing wrong with them. They're really great, so I would check those out and look at doing stuff that way if you can. All right, let's see. I'm going through some of these questions. Secrets of Castle Refuge. Question about Secrets of Castle Refuge. So yeah, that's something I'd like to do. It's just one of my ideas, I'm not sure when we'll be able to get to it, because a lot of this is, when do we have the time? Do we do a world book first or not? But one of the things that I know a lot of people would be excited about is more material diving into what's going on at Castle Refuge and the Tomorrow Legion. So any Palladium fans that are out there that aren't familiar with it, one of the big, about the only change between Rifts for Savage Worlds and your normal Palladium Rifts is that in Savage Worlds version and the Savage Worlds edition, we introduce a new faction in northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, called the Tomorrow Legion. They're based out of a town called Castle Refuge. And so that is, Kevin and I have talked about it, and again, you can see it in the interview, we talked about it a ton. We see the two as different timelines, like a slight different time stream that splits off for people that want to think of it that way. But again, that's when you read through books for the printed for the Savage Worlds edition of the game, a lot of it is framed from the Tomorrow Legion's point of view, since the Tomorrow Legion is kind of a gathering of heroes where the Brotherhood of Glitter Boy Pilots, the Cyber Knight Order, the Justice Rangers, these different groups are all working together in a united front to try and coordinate their response to a lot of crazy stuff going on in the setting. And Brandon said in all caps, Phase World. Yes, I would love to do Phase World. Love to do Phase World. So, again, right now I feel like I want to do the best we can to try and catch up with a lot of the stuff on Rift's Earth, but I would love to work on Phase World. Spent, I think, over a year campaigning with my buddies in Phase World. Actually, through two different campaigns, ended up in Phase World. And let's see. And another question about more original world material like the Tomorrow Legion. So one of the things that I do want to do in the future, all of the world books for Rifts for Savage Worlds are going to be set in 109 PA, so that there's just kind of a baseline. I know with the Palladium releases, they're stepping forward the timeline when each one of them comes out, but we have the unique opportunity to kind of set them all at one time to give everybody a convenient frame of reference. So even if we have, and I'm about to talk about, we want to do adventure material set after 109 PA, towards the end of 109 PA and marching forward. And when that happens, the timeline will diverge, right? It'll be different. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that before that, the books will all be, basically interchangeable, and they're going to be canon and interchangeable with the Palladium Rifts line of products. But as far as adventure material and other special events or special event source books and things like that, is something I would really like to do, to march forward the timeline and see what kind of effect the Tomorrow Legion can have on the world. And one of the things that I've talked about with Shane and with Kevin is that I'd like to do a worldwide campaign where we can put out an adventure module or book, and everyone can have the time to play through it, play through the adventures and the campaign material with their friends and family and stuff like that, and then send us the results. So it won't be like, oh, we all died, or no one died, or we succeeded. I mean, sure, we'll probably have an option for the game masters to report everybody died, TPK or something. But I also want to include different choices that maybe the players, as part of the campaign, and the people on the forefront of the Tomorrow Legion's efforts might need to make in the campaign. And so then we could have those choices depending on what what results people submit could really dynamically change the future of the Rifts for Savage Worlds timeline. So that's something that I'm really excited about, and I think people will really get a kick out of once we make it happen. But again, that's a bit in the future, so don't be asking me. There's not even like a specific book title or something we would have for that. But that is something that I've been thinking about, and I've already talked about with Shane and Kevin. Let's see. Will you be adding your own source books that are not included in the Palladium Books line, or does the license not allow for this liberty? And Jason Smith asked that. Yes, we will be adding books that are not included in the Palladium Books line. For instance, like timeline type adventures and things like that. But from what I understand, and plus, again, you'll see this interview I have with Kevin. I think it'll be really apparent. But Kevin is really cool. When I met him at GenCon last year, we were talking, and one of the first things he said to me is he says, "What do you need? What can I do for you for your line of products?" And I thought that was a really exciting question and a really great attitude, because he's very supportive of us doing different things. Now, of course, it all needs to be approved by Kevin, but in the long run, I mean, we'll eventually catch up. I mean, with these big overview books, especially world books, like, for instance, if we're, Empires of Humanity has like 20 different books that it references, right? I mean, if we can knock out Atlantis and Lemuria and all these other different things, the New Navy and Tritonia and all this in one book, all of South America in one book, most of Europe in maybe a book, or Europe in a book or two, hopefully, China and Japan, in one book. Well, eventually we're going to catch up, and when that happens, it's going to be go time to start doing some really cool stuff. And so, of course, we'll always be coordinating things with Kevin and seeking his approval and his stamp, because we want everything that we do to be Rifts. But I'd be really excited to work on expanded world books and or dimension books and supplements like that, in addition to adventure material that would march the timeline forward. Has Palladium Books been inspired to introduce the Tomorrow Legion into their book at some point? So this is hilarious to me. I thought the Tomorrow Legion was going to be our thing. I didn't know if Kevin always said he thought it was a really great idea, but I didn't think he would want to necessarily put them in his book, since we looked at it as a different timeline. Well, during my interview with him, as you'll see, he actually says that they've already, in material that is being released for GenCon, basically a Rift starter pack and stuff like that, they actually have results that you can get for encounter tables or adventure tables that include one or more encounters with Tomorrow Legionnaires. So I thought that was hilarious that Kevin already has included that faction, our faction, our creation, from the team at Pinnacle into his setting. So that's really exciting to me. Let's see. Can you touch the radio broadcasts across North America? Perhaps a bit about Rift's ham radio communities. So, in Rifts, that's one of the things I would think that I always thought about that when I was a kid, about ham radio and Rifts. I would say that, maybe on a good, so if when you get on ham radio, on a good day, you could talk to somebody in France or on the other side of the planet, right? And so I think that in Rifts, it might be the same way. But the trick is how many people are operating ham radio, because it's not going to be very reliable with all the atmospheric disturbances and the ley line energies and disturbances. Ham radio is not going to be very reliable, and it would probably need to be up powered. So I would say that something like that could maybe be a cool thing for some adventures or a small group of really dedicated teams trying to communicate that way. So there's definitely some possibilities there, but I don't think it would be nearly as easy or as accessible as it is in our modern times, just because of those changes. Do I ever see organized play becoming a thing for Savage Rifts? Actually, I have actually already thought about that. Shane and I have chatted a bit about it. One of the things that I would like to see is it maybe start out with some events that we could have at conventions and things like that, that could be organized. And that's something that I'm not really familiar with if you're talking about like say like the Dungeons and Dragons Adventure League or something. One of the things that with that too is just having the critical mass for the number of players that we would need. So the more we see Savage Rifts growing, and the more we see it at conventions and things like that. And again, that's one of the things I'd like to support. I don't know if I can be at nearly enough conventions to do that, because I don't know about y'all, but man, conventions are really tiring for me. And then with everything going on with the pandemic, it's pretty tough. But that's something I'm really interested in. And it'd be cool if anyone has any ideas about organizing maybe some sort of federation of Rifts game masters and stuff like that. I'd definitely be willing to try it out, especially in a specific region where Savage Worlds has or Savage Rifts already has a lot of people. So anybody that's really interested in that, definitely contact me. One of the great places to discuss that, I think, would be on the Savage Worlds or the Savage Rifts Facebook group, the Savage Rifts Facebook group, because there's already a really great community there, and if maybe you could organize that with some of the people there and see if you can get some things going, and we could share ideas. That'd be really cool. The original Rifts did have limitations on radio range. It'll say like a radio can transmit up to this distance. And we've tried to make that more clear in the Rifts for Savage World supplements, and I make sure that like most of the body armor that you see, we're listing more realistic ranges that you will be able to more reliably, assuming there's not like a ley line storm or ley line nearby, more reliably transmit at. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. With new releases, will you be doing them through further Kickstarters? We're definitely going to keep doing Kickstarters for the large, hardcover book releases, like Empires of Humanity. We're definitely going to keep doing Kickstarters for that. That's just part of how the industry works. So that's going to definitely continue to be a thing. Let's see. Do you ever talk with the authors of the books outside of Kevin, for instance, Greg Diachik for Lemuria? No, I haven't actually talked to many of the other authors. I've chatted with Jason Richards a little bit, and of course a lot of the Pinnacle authors. I've worked a ton with the awesome Sean and Robin Bircher. They're really great, and not only did they help me a lot with figuring out the best way to stat things up and get them ready for Savage Worlds, but also they helped me a lot with my writing and structuring things and stuff like that. So, but yeah, outside of them and some of the original team, and I am in contact with and friends with all of the original Rifts for Savage Worlds team. I don't talk to a lot of the characters too much. Is Biomancy coming in this next book? No. I believe that Biomancy is going to be waiting until South America. With tattoo magic, with stone magic, with Biowizard transmutation, there is a lot of new mechanical systems, a lot of high-level game systems that we were adding in Atlantis and the Demon Seas, and so I made the decision that we're going to be putting that off until South America, which is going to have a lot less of those things, right? So that was kind of just to keep my sanity and make sure that that the book flows and just doesn't overload players with unnecessary new game systems, all in one book and one release. You could pick up radio broadcasts, plot hooks from other dimensions. Yes, absolutely you could, especially like Fade Towns and other settlements like that. Or just, a rift opens, maybe a rift opens every day for an hour at some crazy ley line nexus point, and weird transmissions are coming out of them. Absolutely. I'd love to see an adventure written like that. Voice of Hope is coming again soon. I'm glad to hear that. Salcor, you say that that's Beacon from the Voice of Hope podcast. I hope you know that before I was even involved with working on the new stuff, I was listening to all your podcasts. So thanks again for doing that. That's, I think, a big fan favorite. Let's see. Next question. Any possibility for mutants in orbit and possibility of including more mutant animals that could lead to an after the bomb sort of feel in the vein of classic Eric Wujcik? And I'll grab it real quick. this was my gateway drug into the hobby. So this is my own copy of TMNT and Other Strangeness. So yeah, I would definitely love to do some stuff like that. So when it comes to mutant animal rules, they're basically covered between what we've got in the. So when you check out the Tomorrow Legion Player's Guide, it has. So back up in the new Adventure Edition of Savage Worlds. There is an entire section called Making Races. Can you guys see that? Focus. But yeah, it starts on page 18. This is really versatile, that you can use this to create mutant animals and stuff like that. And in fact, that's what this is. This is the framework we use. There are some extra Rift-specific things that we added to the Tomorrow Legion Player's Guide. It originally had its own kind of truncated version of this. And then for the revised edition, for the Adventure Edition version of it, it actually has just the ones necessary, just a few extra ones necessary. And you can, this is actually how we build DBs. This is how we build them for Rifts for Savage Worlds. And that's how I built when I was doing the mutant animals in Empires of Humanity. So when you go check out the new mutant animals in Empires of Humanity, like the mutant bats, the mutant rats, the mutant felines, and even the Psyx aliens, they're technically mutants. That's how we built them. And if you read on page 23 of Empires of Humanity, I actually added a sidebar called Experimental Mutants about Dr. Bradford and the GED, the Genetic Engineering Division, and the other types of animals that you'll commonly see or uncommonly see coming out of their experiments. And I actually referenced the rules in Savage Worlds. So if you want to do mutant animals, it's there. It's already there, and it's some really killer stuff. Regarding mutants in orbit, yeah, I definitely think that something like that is 100% possible. I think that we would just have to, again, hammer out the details if we wanted to do that for the Risk for Savage Worlds line with Kevin. And that's something that'd be really fun to revisit, I think. Maybe even tie in with if we did something with Phase World, our own release of something like Phase World. That'd be a lot of fun. Aside from Roll20, what VTT support options are you folks looking at? We're looking at Fantasy Grounds. And I believe, let me see, Pinnacle also is working with Astral as well. There might be some more. That's not really my forte, so apologies if I don't know all the details on that. But yes. Let's see. What was your favorite monster of the deep coming in the next book? Well, I don't want to talk about that too much. I'll skip over that a little bit. If you're of a certain age, it was either TMNT or Robotech, or for certain people like me, it was both. I got TMNT, then I got Ninjas and Super Spies, and then I got Heroes Unlimited because it had like cyborgs. I was like, when Ninjas and Super Spies had a little bit of cyber stuff, and then that's how I got into Heroes Unlimited, was it had even more cyborgs and sci-fi weaponry and stuff like that. And then, of course, it was Robotech, so I got a lot of that too, and that's one of the things that Kevin and I geek out over a little bit when we talk about it in the interview we did. So Alien Ropeburn asks, if you wanted to pitch or submit to Savage Rifts as an RPG freelancer, how would I go about that? So the main thing that I would suggest is, and Lord of the Deep and Tritonia will be in Atlantis. The main thing I would say is, if you want to get involved as an RPG freelancer, the best thing I would do is to submit adventure material, short adventure material, and get feedback that way. If you can adhere to the Pinnacle Style Guide, which is different than a lot of other style guides for different published RPG settings, then yeah, we'd love to see your stuff. But the best way to do that is through contacting Pinnacle, and I would say trying to get some adventures approved that way, and then trying to work your way up towards more stuff. I've had really talented people pitch books to me and stuff, but I always say let's dial it back a little bit and talk about adventure material first, because that's kind of the crux of the matter. I think is that we need a lot more adventure material. Whereas when it comes to world books and stuff like that, I'm managing those as we move forward. So I'd rather work with people that I know that they can knock out some really great adventure material for stuff like that. Let's see. What's my favorite monster from the last 3 books? It was actually the Vampire Intelligence. So when I didn't write that book, okay, so Sean and Robin Bircher primarily worked on Blood and Banes, and there was a lot of writers that collaborated on those books. My book, there was some stuff by Fannin and I forget his name. Let me look. Eddie Webb. But when I got the manuscript, it was only about 9,000 words out of what ended up being a 75,000 word book, more or less. And then the other guys that have got their names in there with writing credits. Sean and Robin Bircher helped out with proofreading the books and a lot of really cool ideas for stuff. And then Mark Morant, John McClimans, and Colton Coates all did adventure material. But funny enough, I would normally say that I probably want to put something in my own book. And I am really proud of. I don't really think of it as a monster, but I'm really proud of the T550, the Triax Glitter Boy. I'm really proud of that. Had a lot of fun working on it and researching it, as well as the Golden Eagle Samus. Those are both, and one's the Triax version of the Glitter Boy. The other one is one of the primary power armor suits used by the Republicans. But out of all 3 books, if I just had to pick a monster, I would say it was the Vampire Intelligence, because we just had a lot of fun trying to get those rules right and working on them and coming up with all the really crazy stuff that this Cthulhu level monster could do by slamming with massive tentacles and killing whole armies and stuff like that. I would read that entry 2 or 3 times before you ever ran someone against it, because there's just so many options there and so many actions that thing can take and so many edges and powers and abilities. It's nuts. But that thing could be killer. It'd be really cool. Let's see. On the TMNT topic, TMNT transdimensional. Is it possible to harvest the time travel rules, or is that outside of the IP? I have that one, I think. Oh no, I'm thinking of. I had Mutants and not Mutants in Orbit. What is it called? It's the one where they go to there's the Federats, the Federation, a bunch of hover vehicles in it, and they had a bunch of the dinosaur Triceratops aliens. I can't remember if that one. Yeah, I mean that's something. If you want to harvest the time travel rules, that's totally cool. I think that would. I'm not sure if that would be in our IP or not. That's something I'll have to look at, because we don't really, Rifts doesn't really necessarily focus on time travel unless it's through a rift to an alternate universe that maybe is on a slightly disjointed timeline for one reason or another. But yeah, that's something that we probably wouldn't go straight after as a TMNT property. Let's see. Yeah, the Guide to the Universe. Thank you. I'll have to check out TMNT Transdimensional. I'm not even sure. I don't even know if I'd heard of it. It must have been really uncommon, because I couldn't. It's Triceratrons, as they're called. I never saw it. But I mean, I don't know if anybody who's older, knows how hard it was to find stuff sometimes back in the day. But yeah. Let's see. What other questions we got? Any other questions about currently printed stuff or future stuff, or are we done? It's up to y'all. If y'all have some more questions, I'll answer them. If I don't see any questions soon, I guess we'll just end the live stream. Yeah, give it a few seconds because I know that we've got a delay. And before the delay, I will pitch, or as I'm waiting for responses, I will pitch. Again, if you haven't picked up the Adventure Edition of Savage Worlds, it's really awesome. And then pick up the Adventure Edition of the Rifts books. I think that you'll find that the new edition is a huge, a big step forward. It's definitely a revised edition, not just like some minor updates. The community and I both went through a lot of hard work to bring that up to snuff. All right. Well, cool. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate everybody that joined in on the chat. I'm glad that I could catch you all up. There are some really big things that that I'm actually kind of not revealing right now. It's all contained in the interview that I've got with Kevin Simbita. So that actually, let me just push the button right now and set it to be live so that you guys can check it out and enjoy it before I get off of here. Oops. All right, so the link is it's live now. So if you guys go and refresh, I'll put a link here to the interview. But it's got a lot of really great stuff. So I hope you guys check it out. Watch till the end because there's some big reveals that Kevin drops about some things coming in the future that I get asked about all the time. But I don't want to take away the thunder from Kevin. So I just dropped the link there, Blaze. So hopefully you can see it in a moment. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys go and watch that video because it's a pretty cool 2.5-hour interview I did with Kevin. It took forever to upload and get all encoded and everything like that. We'll see about more models and stuff. Kevin and I talk about the resin glitter boys and minis and other things that are becoming in the near future as well. So again, thanks guys. I'm glad that I know that there's an interview that Palladium should be posting. That's actually the official event for GenCon, but I know that a lot of people wanted to do something live. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks again for asking all your questions, and we'll talk again soon after you guys have finished watching that video, because I'm going to want to get your feedback on what you think about some of the things that Kevin and I talk about. Cheers.